Well, I think that picture of Nick Bosa just to my side represents a lot of us right now. Not really sure what's going on after that wild day. Not really sure what's going to happen next. But as I said on a show earlier today, this is how the NFL owns all 365 days of the news cycle. It's not just about the season, which is getting longer and longer for the NFL. It's about owning the offseason too. And the wild flurry of events that we saw between Aaron Rodgers and his supposed $200 million contract and Russell Wilson being traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Denver Broncos, that just came before the start of the new league year. Normally, we all circle the wagons, get ready on Monday morning, right before the new league year starts, when the tampering window opens, and we get ready for the news to start rolling in. Well, this time, it's really started flooding in before then. And so much that I did 2 shows earlier today just to react live to what was happening. Russell Wilson's out of the NFC West. Aaron Rodgers is still in the conference. And now we wait to see where Jimmy Garoppolo will go if he is indeed traded away from the 49ers. When the Aaron Rodgers news came down, we said what we've been saying for weeks. Once the Rodgers situation is finalized, hammered home, then teams will be able to start doing their quarterback work, especially the teams that need a veteran quarterback or are interested in picking up a new name. And lo and behold, the Russell Wilson deal happened about an hour and a half after the Aaron Rodgers contract news came out. So the next domino, presumably, or one of the next dominoes, is Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So as far as the Seahawks trade, just to kind of wrap things up today, we've had a few hours to get our thoughts around everything. And, the Seahawks have been stuck in neutral. We talked about this yesterday when the 49ers hired Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator who was with Pete Carroll throughout most of last decade. There was a drop-off with Seattle after that Legion of Boom either got old or left, right? The Seahawks were at their best when they won a Super Bowl in the 2013 season. That was with Russell Wilson on a rookie deal. They went to another Super Bowl in the 24 season with Russell Wilson on a rookie deal. And then once they had to pay their quarterback, well, they couldn't pay everybody. So the people that say, oh, the salary cap is fake, the salary cap is an illusion, well, the Seattle Seahawks couldn't survive the salary cap. They had to decide who to pay. They decided to back the quarterback in Russell Wilson, and the rest of the roster deteriorated. And now, as we see, they have decided that playing and going to war with a deteriorating roster on a year-after-year basis is not what they want to do. So they made a trade that I liken to the Herschel Walker trade when Dallas traded their running back away when Jimmy Johnson came in back in '89 to get a bunch of draft capital in return. The Seahawks ended up getting 4 players, including Shelby Harris and Noah Fant, and obviously Drew Lock, although it's not clear if Denver is just trying to offload him or if Seattle actually wanted Drew Lock, and they got a bunch of draft picks. And the story for the Seahawks will now be told in how they used the capital that they gained for Russell Wilson. But this was essentially a divorce between the Seahawks and their franchise quarterback. And the Seahawks wanted to hit the implode button at the right time so that they could pick up as much as they could in exchange for Wilson so they could start the rebuilding process with some ammunition. That's as simple as it gets. They've been stuck in neutral, and they wanted to move this one way or the other. I always say the mediocrity is the worst thing that you can have in the NFL. The Seahawks were pretty darn close to mediocre the last couple of years. I know they went to the playoffs in 2020. There's a little bit of uptick in how they played offensively, but the offensive line was never good enough to seriously contend for a title. The defense was never good enough to seriously contend for a title. And at their best, the Seahawks were a team that was being carried by Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf that had pretty volatile ups and downs, but never really sustained powerful success. So to build sustained success, they thought that they had to trade Russell Wilson, get rid of the past. The Legion of Boom is gone. Russell Wilson is gone. Usher in the new, and we'll see what the new is, because Jimmy Garoppolo today underwent what has been called successful surgery on his shoulder, and there are plenty of potential trade partners. You've got Washington, you've got Pittsburgh, you've got Carolina, you've got Indianapolis, and you have Miami, and that might just be the start of the list. There might be another team on there. The Seattle Seahawks. Can't rule it out because I don't know if Seattle is exactly going to want to go to war with Drew Lock as their starting quarterback in 2022. They may also want to, beef up that room a little bit and then just let a competition decide what's going to happen. But if the Seahawks bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and he is indeed healthy in 2022, well, he's going to start over somebody like Drew Lock. And this is purely speculation on my point. But one of the first things that I thought after the trade of Russell Wilson from Seattle to Denver was, whoa, Seattle is now going to need a starting quarterback. And a lot of the teams on the list right below me might need starting quarterbacks in 2022, with Washington probably being the neediest team in that bunch. They have a decent roster, a good defense, some good pass protectors. They have some weapons downfield, but obviously Washington, the Commanders, that's their new team name, they're going to need a quarterback. And according to one report today, they've contacted every single team about their QB situation in hopes of maybe landing a deal that's favorable to them. And according to another report, it was Washington who also offered, and maybe even offered more than Denver for Russell Wilson. But Seattle wanted to get Wilson out of the conference. So Washington is still in the quarterback market. You have to wonder, is Garoppolo a quarterback who they might be seriously interested in? Other potential partners, Pittsburgh. Do you really want to start Mason Rudolph? I think that speaks for itself. Carolina, they have Sam Darnold under contract. Indianapolis, it seems to me, coming out of the combine, that they're done with the Carson Wentz era. But you never know. I sat next to Chris Ballard at the 49ers Colts game this year because they put visiting general managers occasionally when they don't have their own suite into the press box. So Chris Ballard was literally 2 seats down from me. There was nobody in between us. And this guy was yelling and screaming and pounding the table and just not happy with Carson Wentz. It was generally Carson. His ire was directed to Carson Wentz. I'm like, damn, didn't you just trade for this guy, not too long ago? Because this was back in week 7. It was still early in the 2021 season. Remember that game was playing in a monsoon, so it was hard to really blame quarterbacks for a lot of the crap that happened in that game. It was so wet, the tarp was out on the field until just before. But I came away from that game sitting not far from Colts GM Chris Ballard, thinking that he was not too fond of his quarterback, Carson Wentz. And the comments and the rhetoric about Carson Wentz at the recent NFL Combine did nothing to change my appraisal and analysis of that situation. So there you go, potential suitor for Jimmy Garoppolo, Indianapolis Colts. And Miami, it sounds like they're in on Tua. That's where Mike McDaniel is, though, so you can't rule it out. But anyway, right now is a time to watch because Jimmy Garoppolo did undergo that successful surgery. You have to wonder when the medical due diligence from prospective suitors on Jimmy Garoppolo will be completed. I didn't anticipate anything before his surgery. It would have been irresponsible for anybody to try to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo before the surgery. No matter how routine it might be, it's to fix the capsule ligaments in the throwing shoulder. You might as well just wait it out, wait till the surgery happens, get some medical intel to make sure the surgery went well. And according to a couple of national reporters, it did go well. And that means that, now you can actually move forward and potentially trade for Jimmy Garoppolo if you feel that the medical reports check out. So the due diligence at this point will probably speed up because the surgery is behind us. Teams can start talking to, the doctors who performed the surgery on Jimmy Garoppolo. Teams can start talking to the 49ers doctors because John Lynch said that the 49ers would be open to that to help this process move along. And once that due diligence is completed, once at least one team is comfortable enough that Jimmy Garoppolo will indeed be back and ready to go before the start of the 2022 season, well, that's when you might see a trade consummated. So again, here are some potential suitors. You could probably add Seattle to that list because I don't think the 49ers, it would really suck for Jimmy Garoppolo to go to Seattle and then have him lead a divisional round playoff victory over the 49ers in 2 years or next year. That would, just be a twisting of the knife. So maybe the 49ers do want to get him out of the division, but they also do want to get the best possible return on a trade. And if Seattle likes him, if Seattle wants to pair him with whatever they're building up there, maybe they offer something that the 49ers don't want to turn down. You can never rule this kind of stuff out, although I will say that Seattle was very, very adamant on getting Russell Wilson out of the division. So Washington reportedly was not in serious consideration over there. Another use, Aaron Rodgers still hasn't beaten the 49ers in the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers has reportedly signed back onto the Packers for, 4 years, $200 million? Although Aaron later came on Twitter and said that he hasn't agreed to terms yet, but he has agreed to return to the Packers. So who knows if those numbers are going to be right. Either way, first $50 million man in NFL, and that leads me to the article that I wrote this morning, feels like a week ago, talking about potential contract extensions for Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel. This is on The Athletic. You can get it for $1 a month, and I'm putting it into that chat section right now. Go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and subscribe. In depth, I talked about the potential contract extensions and what they might look like for Bosa and Samuel. The 49ers say they budgeted for them. Yes, there is a way to keep the 2022 cap hits low while giving Bosa and Samuel, Bosa would have a record-breaking deal. I don't anticipate Samuel will have a record-breaking deal, but while giving both players lucrative and well-deserved deals this offseason. This is going to be a fascinating storyline. It may not be culminated until July. It may not be culminated till after then. There's no guarantee that the 49ers do re-sign Bosa and Samuel this offseason, although it does seem that that is something the franchise and I would assume the players want to do. But both are still under their rookie contracts for at least one more year, and then the 49ers can exercise that 50-year option on Nick Bosa, which will be worth like $17 or $18 million for the 2023 season. So we'll see how much money both these guys are slated for. In my piece, I predicted somewhere between 20 and 25 million for Deebo Samuel and around 30 million for Nick Bosa, maybe 29. But he can become the first $30 million non-quarterback in the NFL. Well, that would be something, right? Because Aaron Rodgers potentially just became the first $50 million player, period, in the NFL. There's a chance for Nick Bosa to become the first $30 million non-quarterback. These contracts just seem to be getting out of hand. Other 49ers news, they signed a guy Keaton Sutherland. He may or may not look like this. Just kidding. It's not the star from Jack Bauer, the TV show 24 from back in the day, which would always seem to come on after 49ers games on Fox or whatever channel it was. Yeah, that was a Fox show, right? No, Keaton Sutherland is a reserve guard. I wouldn't read too much into the signing. He spent a lot of last season on the Bengals practice squad. And the 49ers are filling out their roster depth, which leads me to the 49ers depth chart that I manage all season long. And right now, the 49ers have 43 spots of their 90-man offseason roster taken. You can see I highlighted the players that they have signed this offseason in yellow. Keaton Sutherland, I have projected to be a practice squad depth guy, not to make the 53-man roster. So I slot him in right there. You can check that out on my Twitter. There's a link and everything. But as you can see here, only 32 out of 53 projected 53-man roster spots taken. Jimmy Garoppolo is still there, so that would only be 31 out of 53. And the 49ers have a lot of work to do here in the coming week to fill out some of these spots. I've published many free agency pieces. I've talked about potential price tags for some of these players. I've obviously talked ad nauseum about the potential Garoppolo trade. It's time to buckle up and get this show on the road. And I think that that Garoppolo trade can potentially happen now that the Rodgers trade has happened and the Garoppolo surgery has happened. So the medical due diligence can be done. And then a week from now, on March 16th, the new league year will begin. 2 days before that, on March 14th, we're going to see the opening of the legal tampering period where teams can begin negotiating with free agents or pending free agents. And then all hell should break loose between free agency and the draft. The 49ers have 9 picks at the end of April. So we crossed the desert. We've made it through the boring part of the offseason. There were plenty of stupid rumors that helped us get through it. Thank God we had those rumors. I don't know what we would have done without them, but we are now here. We're at the activity, and it sure came down in droves today. This wraps up a wild day from the 49ers' point of view. And, hey, it's a good time for some questions. So I'm going to take a look at a couple, and then it's time to go relax a little bit because there's still a lot more work coming. Is Jimmy getting traded or cut if not traded? I mean, I would think he's going to get traded. That's what the 49ers want to do. I didn't see it happening before he had this surgery, though, and the surgery happened today. I also didn't see it happening before Aaron Rodgers decided what to do firmly with his future, and that happened today. So the floodgates are much more open to that than before. And obviously, I listed the teams that are potential suitors: Washington, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Indianapolis, Miami, and maybe you could add Seattle to that list as well. All right, more questions, more questions, more questions. Let's go. Not a lot of questions. So I'm arguing. As always, put in your questions. I've been on for 15 minutes. I'll be on for a couple more. Subscribe to the channel while you have a chance. I'm sure there's a button right near the screen. Got a nice camera quality. We're going to be eating some good food this year. This week. I've already eaten a lot of good food this year, but this week we're going to be eating some good food. And okay, here we go. We got some more questions. All right, Quinn Price, regular viewer. Thank you, Quinn. Is there a relationship between a Jimmy trade and the Bosa payday? Yes. The Jimmy trade saves money potentially, right? $25 million if it happens. And a Bosa payday costs money. So, yeah, you're going to want to, it ends up coming from the same pot, right? You could maneuver around with the contracts however you want, but at the end of the day, you have to have enough money to pay guys. So, yes, answer that question. Does this mean that Jimmy is the biggest QB left? Theoretically, yeah, unless there's another surprise trade. But with Rodgers and Wilson both not obviously moving anymore, Jimmy Garoppolo is probably top quarterback there on the market. When people are talking about Mitchell Trubisky, it's starting to get pretty bare past that point. So that puts the 49ers in a good position. Their quarterback plan already worked out, in my opinion. I thought that they got good play from Garoppolo this year, got all the way to the NFC Championship game, let Trey Lance learn for a year. And the final culmination of that plan really, really working well is for them to get something back for Jimmy Garoppolo. Because if you get something back for Jimmy Garoppolo, then you kept him throughout a season and throughout a calendar year where the trade market got better from your point of view, if you're the 49ers, because this year there just isn't a whole lot out there from the quarterback position. You saw how much the Broncos had to trade to get Russell Wilson. Would you say the 49ers are on a time limit to move Jimmy prior to the new league year? A little bit, not on a strict one. They're about $1 million over the cap right now. They can get under the cap in different ways. So they don't need that $25 million chunk right away. But you want to have credibility as far as ability to spend in free agency. You really want to architect your team in a way that is reflective of aggressiveness, like controlled aggressiveness, obviously. But option power is a big thing. And you have a whole lot more option power if you have that $25 million freed up, if that's the way that you have decided to go. So I think there's a sense of urgency. I don't think that there is a firm time limit. I think it's a soft limit and not a hard one. Will the 49ers re-sign Mostert or let him go to Miami? Miami might be willing to offer more money, more cap space. Raheem Mostert, by the way, is one of Mike McDaniel's favorite players. So I think it's more likely he goes to Miami. You can't rule anything out. Did Wilson's crazy cost increase the value of Jimmy? I think so. I think that any time that a trade market has been, roughly established in any given year, and Wilson's cost was at 4 players, 4 picks, or 4 picks and a swap, I believe. That's the most recent barometer of the market. So potentially a veteran quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, who can bring some value to the team, will cost something as well. It won't cost as much as Russell Wilson, but all these things can be loosely intertwined. How long is Rodgers' new deal? Well, I'm not sure if the numbers are legit. Rodgers said that he hasn't signed or agreed to the actual deal yet. But what we saw was 4 years for $200 million. Do you agree that Jimmy deserves a winning culture or rebuilds like Carolina, Miami, and Seattle? Well, I think, any player, these guys pay for money, first of all. So wherever they go, wherever they're appropriately compensated financially, I think is what they deserve. These guys work really hard. Beyond that, you never know who's actually going to be good and who's going to be bad in the NFL, right? A team like Miami could come out of nowhere and be good under Mike McDaniel next year, and all of a sudden you think he's going to a rebuild and he's with the Dolphins and it's not a rebuild anymore. The 49ers in 2011 entering the season, everybody thought they were rebuilding, and then they end up a play away at Kyle Williams fumble away from the Super Bowl. So it's tough to know exactly what's going to happen between now and then because so much of the NFL is determined by what happens at the margins. But in general, Garoppolo put in some good service time for the 49ers, played through some injuries. I think he would, all things considered, would like to go to a team that gives them the best shot of winning next year, even if you don't know for sure what that would be. And I think the 49ers will try to do right by him, but their hands might be tied in some instances as well. And it is a business, so they can't guarantee anything. It's not a no trade clause year in Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. And because of that, the 49ers contractually can trade him anywhere that they would like. Do you see the Niners getting back a QB from the Steelers or Washington in a Jimmy trade? If they like a particular backup quarterback, if they like Mason Rudolph with Pittsburgh or with Washington, maybe. You got to figure out who you're going to have backing up Trey Lance, obviously. But I don't think it would be too much of a splash move. I mean, it could be a salary offload, too. There could be some kind of salary swap coming from a potential trade partner. All this stuff, I try not to speculate too much before it happens because, as you can see, people have been speculating about Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, especially I heard Denver Talk Radio was all Aaron Rodgers for the past 2 months. And now, we got to feel silly if you're on Denver Talk Radio. You've been talking for Aaron Rodgers for 2 months, and you have Russell Wilson swoop in, and now he's your starting quarterback instead. So better start talking about Russell Wilson. I guarantee you they will for the next 2 months, but still, I mean, the speculation, a broken clock is right twice a day, but is it going to be right most of the time? No, the speculation won't be right. All right, guys, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your questions. I have to go get some more work done. So it's been a busy day. We'll see when Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded. You could leave it in the comments section. But be sure to subscribe. We'll talk more about it. 3 videos today. The 49ers content is rolling. I even put the Trey Lance film breakdown, episode number 6 of 8. I put that on delay. It's because of all the news. We can get to the Lance film breakdown a little bit later. All right, guys. Everybody take care. See you soon. Subscribe now.